Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the session this morning. The eagle-eyed of you on the call will notice that the moving boxes are still behind me from when I pre-recorded the video you have just watched. There have been comments coming in on my iPad, which I've got here, making fun of that fact. But what I will say is that it's very hard to unpack when you have 9-month-old twins. But anyway, I digress. We have around half an hour this morning, and we have an expert panel, and I want to use the time as wisely as we can. This type of session, will work really, really well if you submit your questions, which I can then read and then relay back to the panelists. So do take the opportunity. You've got a panel of experts here. Make the most of them. I'm not going to introduce the panelists. I'm going to ask them to do it themselves. They will do a much better job than I will. One apology, Clare from East Midlands Airport, wherever she is dialing in from, she's had to evacuate due to a fire alarm. We are hopeful that she can join us at some point during the morning. So if she does, I will let you all know. Just since I recorded the video that you've just watched, which was about 3 weeks ago, something like that, the market has improved even more. We are going to see over 50 million square feet of warehouse space transacted this year. Vacancy is falling in every single market we cover, and in the Midlands, the East Midlands is having a record year, and the West Midlands is returning to long-term averages after 2 years, in the doldrums, I would say, when it comes to demand for warehouse space in the West Midlands. So very interesting times, very successful story on both sides, East and West, for the Midlands as a whole. What I'm going to do now is going to go to each panelist just to introduce themselves very quickly, themselves, their role, and then I'll start the debate with the first question to Andrew. But Andrew, can you introduce yourself first, and then Sarah, and then Liam? So Andrew, over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kev. Hi, everyone. Andrew Pilsworth. I'm Managing Director of the National Logistics Business at SEGRO. So SEGRO is an owner, manager and developer of industrial and warehouse property. And we are the UK's largest listed property company. We're a REIT. And as I say, I run our UK big box logistics business.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sarah Windrum. I am a private sector board director for the Coventry and Warwickshire Local Enterprise Partnership, and I am also the CEO and co-founder of an IT infrastructure and project management business based in Warwickshire called the Emerald Group.
Thank you, Sarah. And Kevin, can I just say you look rather refreshed considering you've got twins at 9 months old. So my name's Liam Davies. I'm Head of City Development at the City of Wolverhampton Council. Responsible for all sort of aspects of the property sectors, really. Wolverhampton Council is a majority landowner within the city, and we work with the West Midlands Combined Authority, Homes England, and other agencies to bring forward sites. Specifically in this particular forum, we're talking about employment sites, so hopefully we'll be touching on some of our opportunities that are coming forward, such as I-54, Western Extension. We've got a site in Bilston, but also just generally what we're seeing in the marketplace in terms of demand, supply, and sort of some emerging trends.
Brilliant. Thank you all for your introductions. One of the questions I will be asking a bit further on, so just to brace you for this, is about the planning white paper and the consultation. So get ready for that. But in the before that, I'm just going to go to Andrew first from SEGRO, and just to can you just give a bit of an end of year report, really, in terms of how SEGRO are viewing the logistics property market at the moment? Unprecedented demand, falling supply. What does that mean for you in relation to your sites in the Midlands?
I think it's very positive, would be the overview. I mean, just to give a little bit of context, I've got a portfolio in my particular patch, which says the UK UK logistics, big box, more than 100,000 square foot. We've got about £1 billion portfolio made up of existing buildings and some very, very large development sites. But the growth for us is in the development sites. And so my focus is largely on new business. So that's building new logistics properties for customers. And yeah, Kev, it's very, very busy. I mean, this year we've completed 2 new buildings. I've got 2 more under construction at SEGRO Logistics Park, East Midlands Gateway, which is the site, a very large site just north of East Midlands Airport. So we've got, as I say, 2 buildings on site there, another nearly 1 million square foot that we're going to deliver for DHL, one of our large customers. And just more widely, it is very, very active. So I can't remember a time where, in terms of the conversations that we're having with customers about future requirements, where it's been busier and more active, and that gives us a great deal of confidence. So I've got two other very, very large logistics sites. We've had the confidence this year to make a really substantial investment in land. We're on site with the infrastructure on our site at Coventry. That's 450 acres to give a bit of context. And then we've got another site of a similar size at Northampton, where we're going to start the infrastructure in early January. And those infrastructure commitments are 100 million plus. They're very significant. So I think that gives you a bit of an idea about how much confidence we've got about the landscape at the moment, and likely future demand for modern large-scale warehouse requirements.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andrew. And the good news for everyone dialed in is that Clare has been able to rejoin us. I'll come to Clare in a moment, but I'm going to go to Sarah first, because Andrew mentioned Coventry. And so with your Coventry and Warwickshire LEP hat on, where does industrial and logistics growth fit into the agenda, in the city of Coventry?
So the logistics sector has been a very crucial sector for Coventry and Warwickshire for a number of years. I think we've got a great location, we've got great infrastructure here, we've got, as you've heard, some big names, we've also got a great group of SMEs in the logistics sector, many of whom developing their own specialisms within that. But obviously we've had COVID, and that's really the drive of e-commerce through that has really made growth in this sector a top priority for Coventry and Warwickshire LEP. And we are actually leading on the recovery plan. The West Midlands Combined Authority are calling it a recovery plan for the sector, for the logistics sector. But actually what we're doing really is building on work that we've long started, looking at automation, looking at new technology adoption within the logistics sector, and how we can upskill existing employees in order to make the most of that, and also what initiatives we as a local enterprise partnership need to put in place in order to support the sector to grow. So yeah, it's absolutely crucial to us.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm going to go to Clare now. So Clare, you missed the introduction. So can I just ask you to firstly introduce yourself, but then go directly into the first question as well, to keep things flowing. And so introduce yourself, your role at East Midlands Airport. But then can you also just explain to everyone dialed in how industrial and logistics fits within your plans for the growth of the airport, and and the freight service and cargo and so on?
Yeah, sure. First of all, apologies, everybody. Nothing like a fire alarm to ruin your day. But yes, Claire James, I'm the Managing Director here at East Midlands Airport. And as you'll be aware, the airport is really, I mean, I call it the big little airport. So from a strategic global perspective, the cargo operation, the logistics operation here is vital. It's vital to the UK, and it is rapidly becoming a global network. So we also have the passenger side, the regional gateway, as we call it, to allow businesses to travel and obviously people to to go on holiday, visit friends and family. So, as has been mentioned, COVID has had a massive impact on the airport and on the aviation industry as a whole. I think, in answer to your question about how important is logistics, what's allowed East Midlands to continue to operate, and at one point during the first lockdown, we were the 10th busiest airport in Europe as a result of the cargo operation. So for us, it's allowed us to weather the devastating impact of COVID and the impact that it's had on our passengers. We've seen passengers reduced to 90% or less than 90% of pre-COVID levels, by 90% I should say, but the cargo operation by night has continued to flourish and grow, and arguably as a result of people not shopping on the high street, the growth in e-commerce, the lack of belly hold freight capacity because the passenger aircraft aren't flying. So we've seen that upturn at East Midlands. It's always been part of our strategy to keep that dual nature of the airport, and I think what the pandemic's shown is just how vitally important that strategy is.
Brilliant. Thank you, Claire. So I'm going to cut to Liam now. And I said I had a potentially controversial question. I'm going to give you an easy one first, and just really more about the, where does industrial and logistics sit in Wolverhampton's regeneration agenda? You mentioned I-54, a wonderful success story. So, if you can just talk about industrial and logistics manufacturing within the Wolverhampton regeneration area.
No, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, no, it's crucial, really. I mean, Sarah's touched on the jobs and skills that can come from the sector, and I think there's a slight misnomer actually on logistics in terms of jobs, because actually, some of the e-commerce that's coming forward and some of the emerging businesses that are coming out of COVID and the requirements that are there in terms of delivery and distribution have an impact on the jobs and create that. But in terms of Wolverhampton's agenda, really, it's actually thinking about business retention as well as business creation. We've obviously got some challenging times, so we want to help businesses survive through the COVID environment. We want them to develop and enlarge, really. So, picking up comments from the panel about the supply chain, there needs to be a continued supply chain there for businesses to develop and to grow. I think it's very important for us to look at the jobs and skills agenda as a reference there. So the opportunities to gain employment there and ensure that there's businesses are able to flourish and develop. Along with that, it's very important for us to consider business rates. I mean, we need business rates to be collected. So the opportunities to develop new product, new specified warehousing and logistic hubs is absolutely crucial to developing those business rates. And we work quite closely with the LEF in terms of enterprise zones, where we're able to look at putting some money in for infrastructure funding. And you referenced I-54. We've currently developed the extension there, so it's opening up another 40 hectares. So opportunities there are massive. And I think, both Coventry, Wolverhampton have the benefit of a really good infrastructure network in terms of transport. So we've got to build upon that. We've got to continue to identify opportunities to look at remediation of the land. And I'm just alluding to that because I think where you're going to go with the planning question. But we've got a lot of brownfield sites still, and we've also got some porous stock, which needs effectively modernising and creating that new spec and new opportunities for development. So I think it's looking at enabling development, looking at opportunities to modernise stock, remediate land opportunities. One example we have, which we're about to launch in January, is a 17-acre site. It's an employment site in Bilston, where we've worked with the Homes England actually to bring the site forward. So that's going to be marketed, and there'll be a combination of uses there. So opportunities for logistics, but also for engineering and job creation. So I think it's really important from the council's perspective to make sure we've got a balance between actually production and engineering, as well as obviously recognising quite a big growth in the logistics and distribution sector.
Brilliant. Thanks, Liam. just to brace Andrew and Claire, there's a really interesting question that's come in about the potential for a free port around East Midlands Airport. So I'm going to go to that question in a minute. But the question that I've been alluding to has been about the planning white paper and how that consultation really doesn't mention industrial or logistics at all. We can see that the focus is hugely on delivering housing, and arguably rightly so. We do need more houses, but for every house that gets delivered, we also need 69 square feet of warehouse space to support it. So I'm not entirely convinced that the planning white paper really does any favors for our sector in terms of delivering growth to the Midlands. If I go to Andrew first, what's your view on the potential, the planning system to allow you to deliver the growth agenda that you have in the Midlands?
Yeah, thanks, Kev. I mean, certainly, if you ask the question, what is the thing I worry about most in terms of holding back our ability to bring forward new logistics site and deliver new logistics facilities, it's definitely planning. So that definitely is, in my view, the biggest constraint. And if we go specifically to the white paper, I think that's a very good summary, Kev. I mean, our view and my personal view is there's some there's some good ideas in there, and there's some good concepts. The absolute concern is the lack of focus on employment land. And without going into some of the specifics, there's even if your land is allocated in a growth zone, the white paper contemplates that then the allocation of that land, even if it's allocated in a growth zone and it has employment use and housing use, then the market will decide which land is allocated for employment and which land is allocated for housing, and that's pretty problematic for us. And that's a number. It's just an overall overarching theme that it is very, very housing centric, and certainly in our view it doesn't have enough focus on employment land. And we know the two should go together. Housing provides a labour force for use on employment land, and vice versa. Employment land provides jobs for the people that live in the houses. So it very much needs to be integrated, and it does feel that there is an over-emphasis, and I think we all understand why with the position with housing, but there's an over-emphasis on housing.
Thanks, Andrew. And I'm going to go to Sarah now. Again with her LEP hat on, and the issues there that Andrew has just addressed. How can LEPs and local authorities and private enterprise, work together to address these very valid concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly what it is. It's all about partnership working. We've been working very closely with industry on the recovery strategy, and obviously this point about space and employment land has come up again and again. And I think Peter Ward, who's the chief exec of the UK Warehousing Association, wrote a great piece in Warehouse News recently about exactly this point, how crucial it is to have this partnership working, and the important role that that local enterprise partnerships play in that, in bringing the right partners together. And that was the feedback that we gave into the planning consultation. And I think you're absolutely right. It's not looked enough at employment land and at infrastructure. And funnily enough, with my other hat on, I've been working on 5G rollout and the kind of planning regulation around that. Yeah, I have an exciting life, don't I? And but yeah, these things are really important. But as I said, I think it's only with these kind of local grassroots partnerships that we're going to make these a success, I think.
Brilliant. And I'm going to go to Liam now, for issues around this question, because you mentioned in your response to the last question about brownfield sites and so on. And one of the issues, I guess, that we have is that a lot of modern logistics operations need modern buildings, and they need huge amounts of energy. They need the right height. They need a whole myriad of factors. How as a a local authority do you square that circle of having the need for modern, high energy, big investment type properties, but also having this legacy stock of buildings that something needs to be done with? How does that work from your perspective?
I think to a point the market addresses it, because what you have is, and as Andrew's alluded to, there's actually quite a strong demand in this sector. So there is a lot of tired stock that can be brought forward. So I think the market to a point will help address some of that, and we're seeing that already. We're seeing a lot of sort of low eaves type former warehouse stocks being bought up by numerous developers, like Barbary and Stofords and Gould Estates. We have specifically within the city of Wolverhampton, and there's a modernisation there. So you're right. It's about making sure you've got the right size, scale, density, eaves height, and utilities is a massive factor into that. The power supply is absolutely crucial. So look, brownfield land. Let's be absolutely honest. It's a circular economy. We need to make sure that we can bring forward brownfield sites. The white paper obviously is looking to protect the green belt. There are infrastructure levies that have been introduced as part of that to help some of the key access points and infrastructure aspects of bringing sites forward. Notwithstanding that, though, I think brownfield sites and the opportunities to look at the Brownfield Land Fund, which is being administered by an authority. They also have other funds like the SIF, Commercial Infrastructure Fund, or the Revolving Investment Fund, and enable some of these sites to be brought forward. Now, viability issues remain. I think that there's more viability issues in the housing sector on brownfield sites. You've got a lot of land with former mine shafts on there and various things like that, which are impediments to delivery. But actual fact, when you start looking at producing sites on former brownfield sites for industrial, the viability is a little bit stronger in terms of delivering that. So I think it's about putting forward the right case. It's working with the LEPs. It's working with the local combined authority. It's making sure you've got planning confidence from from the local planning authority. For people like an organisations like SEGRO to actually sort of come in and have that confidence that local authority is there to support. It's a brokering role, not just a planning role. And it's I've alluded to before my previous answer. Look, the circular economy in terms of creating the jobs, creating that wider multiplier effect is crucial. So we should definitely not overlook regeneration of former brownfield sites. We should look at making sure they're being identified and allocated for these uses, and certainly supporting developers bring these forward.
Brilliant. Thanks, Liam. Now, I'm going to go to Claire. There's I mentioned that everybody has been submitting questions, and some really good ones coming in. I'd encourage you to keep on submitting those questions. We've got about 10 minutes left. But the question that's come in is about UK free ports, and if the East Midlands is selected as one of those locations. I'm going to go to Claire first and then Andrew, but have you made provision for an increase in demand if the East Midlands area in East Midlands Airport is selected as a free port?
Hi, yeah, thanks. I mean, if you've got to look at what free ports can bring to the region. I think we've already established throughout the last couple of days that the fantastic opportunity that the East Midlands region presents. And I think with the great connectivity we've got, both from the rail freight terminal, our road networks, the fact that the airport's within a 4-hour drive of the majority of the UK, and the cargo operation that's already here, the value that we can get by a free port designation is just immense for the region and for the UK as a whole. as I alluded to earlier, cargo has always been a part of our growth strategy, and the Freeport's just plays to accelerating that growth strategy. You know, and in terms of what it can bring to the region, playing on the strengths of what already exists, some of the great manufacturing firms that we've got, the great universities from an innovation perspective. The Freeport designation really does act as a catalyst to get those businesses and get that innovation really fired up and start adding even more value to the region.
Perfect, thank you. And broadly the same question to to Andrew. At SEGRO, does any potential discussion around Freeports have a really positive impact around East Midlands Gateway and so on?
Yeah, I mean, as a general principle, Freeport's very similar to Clare. Yeah, absolutely supportive. Yeah, fundamentally, they're about attracting inward investment into a region that gets that designation. So the rules and regulations are in development or evolving. There was a fairly detailed paper that came out earlier in the week. So as a landowner with land adjacent to a site that might be designated within a Freeport, it's absolutely positive, Kev, because absolutely, as Claire said, Freeports fundamentally it's very exciting because they give huge benefits, and they at their core they attract inward investment into the region, and that's positive for all of us, and it's no different for us as a landowner. That has to be a good thing.
Brilliant, thank you, Andrew. I'm going to go to Sarah and Liam now. Sarah first, because one of the big issues that we've identified in our commentary on the market, particularly around the Midlands, is that so much demand comes from manufacturing companies, and the Midlands has a disproportionate amount of manufacturing companies compared to other parts of the UK. If you look at what's happened in 2020, that demand has largely evaporated. There's a lot of noise around nearshoring, all of this type of stuff. But what can LEPs do? What can local authorities do to support the companies in that manufacturing sector so that they bounce back in 2021 and beyond and start taking industrial and logistics warehouse space again?
Yeah, again, obviously manufacturing a crucial industry for Coventry and Warwickshire. We've got a number of programmes of kind of targeted initiatives that are looking at what we can do here. I think particularly looking at new innovation. Obviously, we've got we're home to the UK BIC, the Battery Industrialisation Centre. So a lot of it is looking at how exactly, actually, in the same way as the logistics sector, how is innovation and technology changing manufacturing, and how can we have targeted support programs looking at various different areas in order to support them to move into the new era.
Brilliant. And the same question really to Liam. You've mentioned big manufacturers in your area. JLR being one. What's the view there? Your side of the Midlands about the role of manufacturing and how it can bounce back.
I think it's very much about innovation and sort of embracing some of the newer technologies. So you've referenced Jaguar Land Rover there. We've got Move. We've got a number of we've got a very much a history of making things. And I think what we're seeing now is an increase in greener technology. So we've got obviously the emerging electrification of not just cars, but also we're looking at how that can impact on transport generally across the piece. That's could be fleet and waste. So I think it's supporting those businesses evolve and generate. And I think there's been a little bit of triage going on in 2020 to support these businesses. So you'll be aware local authorities will distribute the grants to help with businesses. And I think it's a bit about, as I alluded to before, but ensuring there's a business retention, a support there. And the way to do that is to help with, effectively the skills and the supply chain in terms of the workforce there. So yeah, I think it's crucial that we continue to have manufacturing. A lot of the sites we have criteria where, yes, it's important we've got a balance between the industrial and logistics side of the sector, but actually we need to encourage real manufacturing and job creation. So we can do that through some of the planning uses that we apply to the sites. Some of the enterprise zone and let funding that's available to help deliver some of these sites. We're jointly part of the industrial site strategy for the West Midlands, along with other constituent members of the CA, and that's really just targeting and focusing those sort of growth areas too. So I think it's about supporting existing businesses grow and retain those skill sets, but also think about the future and some of the emerging technologies that we're seeing. Could be solar farms, could be batteries. So yeah, I think that's an important growth sector in the actual manufacturing side of the sector.
Brilliant. Thank you, Liam. Now, I'm being whispered to in my ear that we have about 2 minutes left before the next session. This has absolutely flown by. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for your participation. Can I give you each 30 seconds, no more, to say, what is the one message you would have, bearing in mind we've got an audience of local authorities, local businesses, about the industrial and logistics sector. I'm putting you a bit on the spot there, but I'm going to go to Andrew first. He's mentioned the planning system, but yeah, 30 seconds. What is the one thing you would say?
Well, I'll be really quick, Kev. I'm going to put two in. One is definitely planning. As I've mentioned, that's absolutely crucial, and that's the biggest impediment. The other thing I would flag that's really, really important to me is power. And I think this is not just a regional issue, it's a national one as well, that as we look forward, power is going to become incredibly important. We've got an allocation for manufacturing some of our sites that uses a lot of power. Automated online warehousing uses a lot of power. We all need to be green about this, and also increasingly, as we look to the future and people, both in distribution and for labour, we're going to use electric vehicles a lot more, and that's going to put a big power requirement onto industrial and logistics sites. So I think it's a huge topic. I've probably gone over my 30 seconds already, but that's another one that is really close to my heart, and it's both a regional and a national issue that the UK needs to have a really clear integrated strategy to make sure we've got enough power in the right places and that it's sustainable to drive growth in industrial and logistics moving forward.
Definitely over 30 seconds, but I'll let you off just this once. But if I can go to the others, and yes, do keep it quick. The one thing you would say. So Liam, please.
Sorry,
Lost Liam.
yeah.
So I'm going to go
Sorry,
to.
a bit of a delay there on the line. So look, I mean, my message really is, from a local authority perspective, talk to us. We're here to help. We're here to do business. So I think as a developer, a manufacturer, or a supplier, get in touch directly with the council. We help with brokering land deals, or whether we've got sites ourselves. And I think it's important to have that relationship. We shouldn't be seen as a sort of a distant local a planning authority. We're actually a council to help develop business. So I think what we want to say is that we're here to assist, support, broker, whether that's looking for funding, whether that's looking for sites. And I think that's really the message I want to get across. We're not just here to respond. We're here to get involved, and I think that's crucial, that a local authority can help drive some of this investment, but also help deliver sites coming forward.
Perfect. And then to Sarah at the LEP.
Skills. That's my message, is skills. We've got a pledge to retrain 40,000 people in the logistics sector, and that's through partnership working with universities and with further education colleges and schools as well. So skills is my message.
Brilliant, thank you. And lastly, over to Claire.
Hi, yeah, I think it's just to try and draw them all together, actually. Consensus, we need to work together, really dispel the public perception that logistics is a dirty industry, and let's innovate and really bring that green agenda to the fore to address those power issues, whether it be through hydrogen or other sustainable green fuels. But it is about working together to really recognise and capitalise on the value that this region has.
Brilliant. I want to thank you all for your tremendous insight this morning. I want to thank everyone who dialed in for the questions. This particular topic could be a 2-day conference in its own right. So there's lots to talk about, lots that we didn't get a chance to talk about, for which I apologise. But enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you very much.